let's say we'll make a claim like this, and this not only because of this particular study that Sanjay is doing, but a few other studies that some of us have been concerned with over the last few years, including land record computerization, which started in India about 20-25 years back, much before electronic marketplaces. Yeah? And land record computerization is oblivious to the need of tenant farmers. It's oblivious to the need of landless farmers, right? So what we are trying to understand is whether existing approaches to designing digital technologies for use by the Indian state, yeah, to address development concerns. So the concern of low income in rural areas is a development concern because it has economic consequences, it has social consequences of distress migration and various other things, leading to broken families, leading to various other ways in which societies may suffer. So the signals that we are getting is that the approach to designing these technologies, that approach to using ICTs for achieving development and governance outcomes by the Indian state, but by various other state-led, state-based agencies in similar countries, they demonstrate this element of elite capture. So, electronic marketplace, electronic agricultural marketplace, a commodity exchange would be in the agricultural hierarchy much easier for a larger farmer with more assets, with more capacities, with more risk-taking abilities to participate in than a smallholder. Yeah. So from that perspective, when we are designing a technology solution like this, we are probably looking at that group of farmers who already have incomes which are on par with average national incomes, right? So they are probably better off in terms of the new transformation that ICTs are trying to bring about. So that's a concern that we want to work on and work in addressing through our design of technology. Okay, so let's go back to governance. Yeah, we will just forget about technology for the time being. We'll go back to governance. So what are we talking about in terms of governance today? Yeah. So our mantra for governance in the country is Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas. Yeah. Which, as per the website, as per the Prime Minister's website, translates to collective efforts, inclusive growth. Yeah. So growth in economic, say, outcomes needs to be inclusive, which means distribution is a concern. Distribution needs to be engaged with, and that growth needs to come about through collective efforts. Yeah. So we don't want a few people to contribute to that growth. We want the growth to come about by collective efforts, right? So that is what we are trying to do. We are talking of, in terms of our governance reforms, we talk of accountabilities, we talk of participation. Yeah? So participation is also something that we have been talking about. Active participants in the governance process, we talk of accountable administration. So these are some of the terms that are important for us as a nation in terms of realizing our development ambitions. It is not exclusive to the current dispensation at the center. The earlier government, when the 5-year plan used to exist, also talked about faster, sustainable and more inclusive growth. So we have reason to believe that inclusion in our growth process is something that we all value as a nation and as a society. So if we were to engage with something like that, where do we reach out to for theories that can help us? What I have been looking at of late is this economist by the name Amit Bhaduri. I'm sure some of you would have read his works. What he's talking about is, in terms of our political ideologies, a market-led capitalism and a state-led socialism may not have worked. Yeah. So we have no reason to believe that a market-led capitalism has worked in India. Yeah. We have no reason to believe that a state-led socialism will work in India. It across the world it has not. Yeah. So we have instances that market-led capitalism gives rise to more inequalities, that a state-led socialism gives rise to inefficiencies, breaking down of states, failed states, all that. Yeah, the models that have been followed. So, is there value in bringing them together? Can we bring elements of market-led capitalism, and can we bring elements of state-led socialism together? So, what is it that we can borrow from a market-led capitalism model? Yeah. So, what has worked in India has been political democracy. What we pride in terms of having achieved over the last 70 years is a stable democracy. So, any say accomplishment or any say Independence Day speech will talk about India has been important in terms of maintaining and sustaining a vibrant political democracy, right? And a vibrant political democracy is what a market-led capitalistic structure has provided us, or what it advocates, right? What is it that we can borrow from the state-led socialism model? A state-led socialism model allows us to bring in collective efforts in production. It does not privilege certain individuals or certain factors over others in terms of production. So it does not privilege capital over labor. So it does not privilege those who are sitting in the Dalal Street in Mumbai over those who are producing paddy in Tumkur, right? So it tries to bring collective efforts in terms of producing. So what Bhaduri is trying to say is, can we look at political democracy and can we marry political democracy with a production process that is more inclusive, that employs collective capabilities in terms of how it is being produced, right? Because something like that would be useful in terms of looking at a high rate of, or looking at issues of inclusion in our growth processes. We want people to be involved in production. We want them to be involved. We want them to participate in the way growth is happening in terms of economic outcomes. So what is advocating is, sorry. We need to look at the poorest and the most disadvantaged, in this case the smallholders, as a producer and a consumer. And we need to value him or her for producing, not only for consuming, but also for their abilities to produce, right? And this is what he says can lead to development with dignity for people. Yeah. A development which is appreciative of dignified living for all human beings, and that is something that the SDG space wants us to do. That is something that our governance priorities want us to consider. That requires a greater participation of people, especially those who have been marginalized because of their gender, because of their physical abilities, because of the social and economic status, to participate in both production and consumption. Yeah. Okay. So that's one thing. Quickly, we did not. There is a notion in terms of in technology studies which is called social shaping of technology, and that is reinforcing technology as a political actor claim that I was making. Yeah. It says that technologies are socially shaped. They don't follow any inherent economic or technical logic. It says that this is the only path that technologies will take in their evolution. Technology evolution happens because of various social forces, and because various social forces interact with giving shape to a particular technology, right? It is concerned with the direction of technology, it's concerned with the direction of innovation, it's concerned with the form of technology, the content of technology artifacts, and it is concerned with the outcomes of technological change for different groups in society. So this is a technological position, or this is a position that is coming to us from the technology studies literature, from the economics literature. Development with dignity is something that allows us to consider individuals who have been marginalized from various aspects of economic or social activity to become more active producers and not only remain passive consumers of whatever, of governance reforms, of technology, etc. So if you were to combine both of them, yeah, what we are saying is, if technologies were to play a role in achieving the Indian state's agenda of development, or generally the global community's agenda of sustainable development, the design approach and production logic needs to change. There is no reason, and it can. So technologies are not deterministic. Yeah? Technologies can be shaped by society, right? And we know, we have reason to believe that the direction in which this technology is leading us to may not be what we want, or may not be where we want to go. So we have reason to then question the direction and say that the logic of producing ICTs need to change, right? And how should it change? Something that has already been talked about in the earlier sessions. Designs will have to be more appreciative of local context, people, their needs and their rights and entitlements. Yeah? We need to engage more and more with people, we need to engage more and more with people and their rights. Yeah? So if people have a right, it's different from welfare, it's different from charity. Yeah? So a right is something that I can claim. A charity is something that I will request. Yeah. Therefore, we have a right. Yeah. People have rights. They have right to education. They have right to employment. They have right to livelihood. They have so many different rights as citizens. And if we need to be aware of those rights of individuals. Yeah. And we need to incorporate all these rights and their entitlements in the way we design technology.
And we don't just restrict rights to state given rights, right? Our constitution may define rights. Or we maybe have to have a more broader.
So how would you otherwise define rights? Rights are, yeah, so
If the state said if the state did not explicitly does not explicitly guarantee you a right to livelihood, what would it be? Is that a right that design should still be considered if the design has been done by the state?
no. In that case, that right need not be, if it's not a, see, the question with right is that the state needs to protect that right. Yeah. So it needs to at least acknowledge that this is a right, and if that right is being enforced, it's not a charity on the citizen. So PDS, for example, is not a charity. It's because it's a vehicle to enforce right to food. So as a citizen, I have a right to food security. So I claim that right from the state. The state is not doing a welfare, or you as a taxpayer are not doing a welfare to me if I am getting subsidized ration from the fair price shop. It's my right as a citizen which I am trying to fight.
Extending that example, how is it not an entitlement? Because not everybody.
So rights protect entitlements.
Can I expand that a little bit? I mean, the right is protected under the Constitution. The rights are given, but then the rights, if you expand them, you have to look at right to food security, rights within. That means you may be getting the nutrients and the food you need, but the quality, and the rights through as a consequence of. So if you take the right as a constitutional right embedded for all citizens, irrespective of who they are, then you have to unpack that and say rights to, rights within, and rights as a result of. That's the full, I think.
Okay, so I'm more or less done. Do we have hope? Given all this, where does hope lie? Do we have any hope with ICTs, with wherever we are? Any examples that come to your mind? Can it actually be done? So one of the powerful examples that I have come across in our context over the last 100 years has been this. This is the image of a charkha here, Kalish. Yeah, so this to me symbolizes a lot of what we are trying to deal with at this point. Yeah, it's simple. It's not very difficult in terms of operating, right? It was able to assimilate a lot of context, right? It was not, and it was able to assimilate a lot of context, socio-economic, cultural context, right? And in terms of impact, it had, and who was it fighting against? It was fighting against the big capital driven machines in Manchester, right? But then it was able to achieve something that was quite dramatic. So in terms of impact, yeah, this was able to bring about a change that was at the level of the grassroots, that was at the level of individuals, which did not privilege production. Yeah, it democratized production. So I am producing, the village is producing, and I value that production. Yeah? I am not only a consumer of cloth being produced in the mills, but I am producing that cloth. Right? So we may probably want to look at a variant, a IT variant of the charkha to address some of the concerns that we face in terms of technology exclusions. Right? So let me leave you with that. I'm sure this may kind of arouse extreme passions or extreme reactions, but I leave you with that reaction. Maybe you can think over it, we can discuss it over coffee, and you're most welcome to not agree, to have your own positions, because that's what the intention is, that we should be aware of what position we are trying to take, and we should be confident and brave enough to take that in our designs.